A relationship with the right referral partner could be a game changer for any B2B company. So what if you could reverse engineer these relationships at a moment's notice? Start a podcast, invite potential referral partners to be guests on your show, and grow your referral network faster than ever. Learn more at sweetfishmedia.com.
You're listening to B2B Growth, a daily podcast for B2B leaders. We've interviewed names you've probably heard before, like Gary Vaynerchuk and Simon Sinek, but you've probably never heard from the majority of our guests. That's because the bulk of our interviews aren't with professional speakers and authors. Most of our guests are in the trenches leading sales and marketing teams. They're implementing strategy. They're experimenting with tactics. They're building the fastest growing B2B companies in the world. My name is James Carberry. I'm the founder of Sweetfish Media, a podcast agency for B2B brands, and I'm also one of the co-hosts of this show. When we're not interviewing sales and marketing leaders, you'll hear stories from behind the scenes of our own business. We'll share the ups and downs of our journey as we attempt to take over the world. Just kidding. Well, maybe. Let's get into the show.
Welcome back to B2B Growth. I am your host for today's episode, Nikki Ivy with Sweetfish Media. I've got with me today Tara Bryant, who is Senior Vice President of Global Sales at Pipedrive. Tara, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, Nikki. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. I'm excited to talk to another fellow Texan.
That's right. It's nice and refreshing.
It is. And I'm excited to nerd out a little bit on sales best practices. That is, one of the things that's been I'm super passionate about, and it sounds like you are too. You've been so successful, so I can't wait to get some wisdom from you for our listeners here. But before we get into all that, I would love it if you would just give us a bit of background on yourself and what you and the folks at Pipedrive have been up to these days.
Absolutely. So I have been in sales for longer than I like to admit. And like you said, I'm headed up sales right now for our global company of Pipedrive. We are the first CRM tool that was actually built from a salesperson's point of view. So this really helps salespeople, want to use it. That's always the number one issue with the CRM tool is sales reps don't want to use it because it doesn't help them sell. Actually, the way that Pipedrive has been able to build this CRM tool, we have within the first year, our customers average about a 28% increase on their close ratios because we're really able to bring all the tools together, all the data that's needed, so you can really fine tune your sales process and be able to sell more.
All the things that I love.
Me too.
If you're not already ready to call, Tara, what are you doing with your life? Some of the specific things we were going to talk about today are training, some best practices, some pitfalls, and how to keep your team motivated. So let's start with training. I know it's kind of a broad thing, but specifically talk about the importance of, effective training when you're building a team.
Absolutely. I say the number one thing to do is get a customized training program. There's a lot of great training programs out there, and we know the big names, and they've been around for a long time. The problem with that is every single company has small nuances, and you want to ensure that those nuances become your spotlight and become your differentiators in your market. And so the first thing I would do is come up with a methodology, a foundation in which you're going to train from, and that needs to be customized to your product and to your environment, and more importantly, who you want to be in the market. What brand, continuing to make sure that your brand is coming through your sales folks.
For sure. And I think that last piece, that brand piece is a piece that is really easy to miss, right? Especially when you're training salespeople, because a lot of time you're training on technique or you're training on the tools that they'll be using in the day-to-day.
That's
and,
right.
Brand is left to marketing or, left to just that individual industrious one or two salespeople who make that, a priority for themselves. So thanks for laying that part out. What are some of the best practices that you've seen relative to this, besides what you just laid out in terms of the training?
Yeah. So best practice, I would say there's a couple of things you really want to make sure that you're having your team doing. But one of the things as a leader is you really want to make sure that you are staying upfront and what's coming out in the form of different tools. So always make sure that you know the newest tools that are out there. Automation's a big button right now. Make sure you've got an open API with all the tools that you're looking at each other. Take a step back and make sure that everything can talk to each other so you can build your team strategically. I would say that for a leadership standpoint. As far as a salesperson standpoint, I would say keep track of what you're doing. Constantly measure and try and sample little things that you're doing. It may be an email and you put their name, just their first name in the subject line, just their last name in the subject line. You keep it to 2 bullet points. You add 2 paragraphs. Whatever it is, keep track of it. And then I think the third thing is don't ever get, distracted or down on yourself. Sales is about rejection, right? I always use the analogy, it's a lot like dating. You only need to find the one eventually, and you're going to go through a lot of no's. And so stay persistent, stay, hungry out there. Like always stay hungry, always feel like you have a sense of urgency and that every minute that you're not selling, you're wasting $1.
You're so right. You're so right. When I was, spending my time in these Austin startup streets out here on the sales floor, just trying to make it happen, my kids would be like, Mommy, what do you do for a living? And I'm like, I talk to strangers and I kiss frogs, because that's that's what it comes down to. And in those times when I would, you talked about getting down on yourself. And those times when I would get down on myself, look, there's a time to reflect on, what I could have done better. But I realized I had been choosing the wrong time to do that. The wrong time was between phone calls.
That's right.
And when I would do that, it would just absolutely kill my energy for the rest of the day. So, so these best practices are like some of the best practice. And I'm really glad that you mentioned them. And what are some of the, and I have to go ahead and say on a personal note, these are of particular importance to me, because I actually am mentoring a young man who is trying to start into a sales career, and it happens to be my son.
Oh, that's exciting.
So
okay.
It is. So I'm trying to help him a lot. And these are a lot of things that I'm I've never been in sales leadership. So it's really valuable to get this straight from you. So it's kind of selfish, but I know there's some of our listeners that'll get something from this too. What are some of the common pitfalls that people at leadership level, at the organizational level, and at the individual contributor level that folks miss when it comes to stuff like this?
Okay, so let's first talk about individual contributors. I think there's 3 common pitfalls. There's a lot of them, but we'll cover at a high level, I think 3 of them. The first one is we talk too much. All right. We constantly think the more we talk, the more we're going to win the sale. And actually, I tell people it's the complete opposite. So recently, Sales Hacker did a study, and what they showed is that sales professionals who are the most successful talk about 40 to 45% of the discovery call. And sales professionals who are lower performers are more around the 70-75% range. So the less you talk, the more you win. That is always going to be your number one, right? And that's even good in an interview. When you're interviewing for a job, if you can get them talking, they're going to end the interview and like, wow, that person was great. I want to hire them. And you barely talked at all. So that's a good trick of the trade for that one. The second thing I think is sometimes people focus on selling instead of helping. Mm-hmm. If you truly believe in what you're offering, then you're not selling anything, no matter what the cost is. You're truly providing something that's beneficial and helpful to people. So stop trying to pitch all constantly, right? Stop overselling. Instead, build trust. Build it by knowledge in what you're offering, and build it by honesty. Always do what you say and say what you do and be truthful. If it's not going to work, I've sold so many things to people that I had told them a year prior, this isn't the right tool for you. And they go to a different company, this is the right tool for me now. Now I need this now. I need this now. And it's because they trusted you and you were honest. Right. I think the last thing that I think is really important, and this is good for leaders and for individual contributors, is not picking up on social cues. I call it pivoting. You've got to be able to pivot. We live in Texas. We just discussed this earlier, Nikki. We're both in Austin. And I originally came from California. Everything's very fast paced. Everything, go, 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 go. You don't really trust anybody. You got to make sure that you've got it in writing. If it's not in writing, it's not going to happen. Well, when I moved to Texas 15 years ago, that was completely different. It was more, if I know you, you know this person, you shook my hand, you looked me in the eye. I had to learn to slow down. I had to learn to pivot. And when you can do that with whether it's internal peers, whether it's your leaders or whether it's someone that you're trying to help with by the product you're offering, you've got to listen and learn their social cues and make sure that you are pivoting to match their style and to mirror them. One way that I say is really important that we do at Pipedrive, and I've done it in all of my companies, is I don't like scripts. A lot of sales professionals love scripts. I don't like them. Here's why I don't like them. If I'm going to hire your son, Nikki, as my next sales professional, which I'm hiring, so let's talk about it after. But in all honesty, if I'm looking for that person, I'm hiring you because of your individual contributing factors that will add to this piece of the puzzle that we're trying to build. And so why would I give you a script as the same person to the person next to you? I want to use that individual piece of it to add to my sales team and to add flavor and color to our culture and to our brand. So what I mean by that is what we do, instead of a script, we have goals. This is the goal of the call. This is the goal of the meeting. This is what you want to make sure you're helping the customer, that this is what you want to make sure that you're getting across them. And however it is that you do that, you work your magic. So I think those are the top things. Talking too much, as I'm doing right now, focusing too much on the sell, building instead of building trust. And then the third thing is learning when to pivot and how to mirror who you're speaking with. That's for an individual contributor. For the leader piece of it, and that kind of falls into the fourth subject, which is how to keep your team motivated and engaged.
Yep.
I think those things are very hand in hand. So if it's okay if we lump those together, because I was telling you earlier, I'm writing a book about this, that I really believe that there are motivational languages that people have. And really what it is a leader, a good sales leader, does not motivate anybody. Motivation is found within, right? When you have a high EQ, you're self-motivated. So motivation comes within. But what a good sales leader does is they know what sparks and what ignites your motivation. And that's the language that they speak to you. And so that is what you want to learn. You want to understand what is important to your team, to managing up, to your leaders that you're working with, to your peers across different functions. You want to truly understand them as a person, both personally and professionally, because I don't believe you just manage just the professional side of it. I learned that a long time ago in my career. And so you really want to make sure you understand who you're dealing with, who you're coaching, and taking that seriously, right? Every day when I wake up, I spend at least 30 minutes to 45 minutes and I look over my entire team and I think of what have I done for them? What am I focusing on? What have I increased or changed something for them positively this month? Like, what do I need to do to touch this person? Or what do I need to do to make sure I'm reaching out to that person and making sure I'm making a difference? I think those things are really important. And that too is some best practices and things that you have to make sure you're doing to keep your team involved. There's so many statistics out there and even new tools that will talk about employment engagement. It's a newer buzzword, I think, the last 4 or 5 years. Mm-hmm. It's important because if you can keep people excited to come to work every day, magic happens, right? A common thing I'll say to my team and to my leaders, if you take care of your people, the people take care of the number. It's just what happens.
Straight up. You gave us so much just now. So much, Tara. But particularly, I think this idea that you have for this book that you're writing is brilliant. So it takes the concept that we've heard before when it comes to love languages, right?
Right.
Which comes up a lot in my house.
Me too.
I am a words of affection.
Me too.
Kind of girl. And my husband is an acts of care kind of guy, right?
Yeah.
So I can be all in his face telling him how much I love him all day long. But if he asks me to, peel the potatoes for the mashed potatoes and I didn't do it, well,
That's
look,
right.
I missed out. We're not speaking the same language.
That's right.
To apply it that simply to the relationship between, sales leaders and their individual contributors is not a way that I've heard it talked about before. I've been, trying to sort of articulate that idea. And I think this is the best way I've heard. And I'm super excited. So you got to hurry up and finish writing the book so I can read it.
Well, I'll give you a signed copy. I'll bring it on over in downtown Austin for you. Okay?
Yes. So now, and I could go on about this with you for a whole other episode. We've got to have you on again because I don't think we quite scratched the surface even on the things that we could learn from you. But now that I have succeeded to some degree in picking your brain and seeing what I can get out of it, it is time to talk about what you are putting in it. Tara, tell us about what learning resource you have been engaging with that is, speaking to you these days or informing your approach or that's just got you excited.
Sure, absolutely. So one of the things that I have been recently doing is I have been listening to a podcast by Jordan B. Peterson, and it lends a little bit. I'm actually not reading books. Since I'm writing a book, I was told don't read books. So I'm not reading any right now, which is a little bit challenging for me. So I've been listening to some podcasts and not about work stuff. And this is more philosophy in life. And I think what it does is it really helps you be able to understand and relate to people. And it goes back to that, again, take care of your people, they'll take care of everything else that you need to and the number. So really just trying to understand myself, constantly learning and trying to understand other people. I think that's been really, really helpful for me. And then the other thing is just writing my book. As I'm writing, I've been going back and reflecting my book has a lot of stories and how, you see this methodology and how it's able to be effective. And I've kept books for the last, 15, 20 years of one-on-ones with my employees, and just going back and reminiscing and just having a moment to reflect on life, I think is really important. So I think I try to take 10 minutes a day where I reflect on the past. I try to take 10 minutes a day where I reflect on the future and plan for that. And then the rest of my 90% of my day is enjoying the present of the moment. So I think those are some things that are really, really helpful for me personally.
Perfect. Y'all can't see me because it's a podcast, but I've just been over here like fawning basically, making all the most excited faces as Tara's talking. Tara, thank you so much for coming on the show and talking to us about the importance of training, sales best practices, and some pitfalls that folks can avoid, and also how to stay motivated. And like me, I know you've made lots of people fans out here who are listening. Let us know, Tara, how people can connect with you.
Absolutely. So LinkedIn's a great place to find me. I'm Tara Bryant. Peterson is my maiden name, so that one might be in there. I'm not sure, but definitely find me that, or Pipedrive handle for Twitter, and I definitely follow that and keep track on that as well, so I can answer anything from there also. But LinkedIn's probably the best place to find me.
Sweet, same. All right, so we're gonna have you on again once to talk about your book, and probably just another time just for me to ask you questions.
Sure.
I want to know from your brain.
Well, I think your podcast is great. I listen to it, and I think it's great. It's short, it's sweet, to the point, which I really appreciate. So you guys have got lots of great tips in there. It's great.
Thank you so much, Tara. Can't wait to talk to you again. Have a good one.
Thank you. You too.
We totally get it. We publish a ton of content on this podcast, and it can be a lot to keep up with. That's why we've started the B2B Growth Big Three, a no-fluff email that boils down our 3 biggest takeaways from an entire week of episodes. Sign up today at sweetfishmedia.com/big3. That's sweetfishmedia.com/big3.